In many old movies, Hollywood would try to strike fear into your hearts by bringing in headhunters with shrunken heads, or use it to make you laugh in such movies like Beetlejuice, where the headhunter sprinkles a little bit of dust over Beetlejuice's head and makes his head shrink. Yet, is head shrinking actually a real thing? Was it ever a real thing? And if so, just how does it work? Let's discuss on today's Peculiar Occurrences. A shrunken head is a severed head that is specially prepared and used for trophy, ritual, or trade purposes. Headhunting has indeed occurred in many regions of the world, but the process of head shrinking has mostly been documented in the northwestern region of the Amazon. Many tribe leaders would show off these heads to strike fear in the hearts of their enemies. Many tribes in that area began trying to ward off colonial rule as early as 1599. This is also when it's believed that many tribes in that area began shrinking heads. The practice of shrinking heads continued until at least the 1950s, though the Western world didn't really fully discover it until around the 19th century. The many Amazonian tribes were greatly changed when they started to trade heads as a sort of money in order to gain guns and gold. As a result, warfare between tribes greatly increased, and between a 22-year time period, one tribe lost nearly half of its population. The increase in disease, war, and death was blamed primarily on witchcraft. This actually ended up leading to even more war. The practice of preparing a shrunken head originally had religious significance. Shrinking the head of the enemy was believed to harness the soul of the enemy and keep their spirits from avenging their own death. Most of these tribes believed in the existence of 3 different types of souls, and hopefully I pronounced this right. I'm sorry if I don't. It is not my native language, but I'm going to give it a try. I'll also put it here or here so that you can see how it's spelled. The first one is the Wakani, and the Wakani is supposed to be the natural human soul that survives death. And then Artam, I think it's Artam, literally means vision or power, and was thought to protect humans from a violent death. So like a protector spirit. And the Muzak, this is the one they mostly did the shrunken heads for. Muzak was a vengeful spirit, which surfaced when a person carrying a Artam spirit was murdered. So someone that had a powerful visionary spirit, if they got murdered, it became a vengeful spirit. As I was saying before, to block a Mozak spirit and from using its powers, they severed the enemy's head and they shrank them. And the process also served as a way for them to warn off their enemies. They'd oftentimes wear them and warn off their enemies that way. But despite these precautions, the owner of the trophy did not keep it for long. In fact, tribal members would often give the heads to their children or to animals once they were finished making them. And this only changed once people started to realize that these heads had trade value. Then among some tribes, many of the heads were used in religious ceremonies and feasts that celebrated the victories of the tribe. And accounts vary to whether the heads of those were discarded or stored. And it's worth noting that taking off of an enemy's head and shrinking it actually goes all the way back to ancient China, though no other cultures are thought to have done this before the Javarian tribes. And in a more modern example, during Nazi Germany, 2 shrunken heads were actually presented at the Nuremberg trials. It's been hotly debated on whether or not the Nazis actually made these heads themselves or if they came from South America. Either way, though, these items could have easily been used to intimidate their prisoners. And in more modern day, there are people that believe that ISIS has been shrinking heads and selling them in order to fund terrorist activities. The selling of shrunken heads was a big industry. Many Westerners would pay big money to get their hands on a legit shrunken head. For example, actor Nicolas Cage is actually a huge collector of shrunken heads, a hobby that may or may not be completely legal. And the legality of his little collection cannot even be determined unless some sort of DNA analysis is done on his collection to see if they're the real deal. Importing artifacts of this type is typically illegal in the United States, which could lead to jail time and a serious financial penalty. Most trinkets that are sold to tourists are known to be of very low quality, and interestingly enough, this also proves true with actual shrunken heads. Okay, now let's get into the process of how you make a shrunken head. The process of creating a shrunken head begins with removing the head from the spine, of course. An incision is made on the back of the ear, and all of the skin and meat are removed from the skull. And the skin is also separated off of, the meat. Then red seeds are placed up under the nostrils. Then the mouth is held together with 3 palm pins. Then a wooden ball is placed underneath the skin to help it keep its shape. At this point, the prepping process is complete and it's time to actually move forward with the shrinking. They actually put the skin of the head into boiling water full of tannis herbs for 90 to 120 minutes. At which time the skin would slowly shrivel to 2/3 of the original size, and the head can become compromised if the boiling process isn't done right. If it's pulled out too soon, the head will come out gooey, yet if it's left in there too long, the hair will fall out. But if it comes out and the skin is rubbery and dark, then it was probably done correctly. At this point, they would try to shrink the head even further after pulling it out of the pot. They would end up placing hot stones and sand within the head, and then they end up going over the skin with a hot stone in order to help it keep its shape, or really shape it to keep it looking like a human face. What they're really trying to do is give the head definition and make it last for centuries. Then they would cover the head in ash. And in their traditions, it's believed that covering the head with ash helps keep in the evil spirit. And lastly, the head would be hung over a fire to blacken and harden. It was after this that the pegs were removed from the lips, and the mouth was finally actually stitched up at this point. And the eyes and the mouth are sewn shut. And tribes do this in order to try to trap the soul within the head. And also at this point, sometimes they would add decorations to it like beads or feathers. Also at this point, a hoe at times would be made in the top of the head in order to make it a necklace, to be able to make it easier for people to carry around and carry and wear the head of their enemies. And the obsession with these shrunken heads has led to the creation of a huge industry of fake shrunken heads. It is thought that up to 80% of shrunken heads on the market today are actually fake. Some places still claim to carry the real deal, but it's unknown how these dealers are able to verify whether or not they have an actual real head. I mean, unless you're willing to pay a DNA analyst to run some tests for you, it's really highly unlikely you'll ever really know whether or not your head is real or not. Fake heads take up around 3/4 of the shrunken head market, so if you're trying to determine if a display piece at your friend's house is the real deal, you'll have to look for a few signs that make fake heads really stand out. Okay, how to tell if your shrunken head is fake or real? A lot of these fake heads are known as false heads. These tourist souvenirs are made out of animal skin rather than humans and are particularly lightweight. You'll find that the hair on them is actually glued on, and the ear structure and facial details lack any prominent depth or structure. And they usually have prominent ridges along the mouth slit. But these are legal to buy, sell, and trade, so if you're looking for a shrunken head, these are going to be your best bet. So what do you think about this peculiar occurrence? I've always wondered about shrunken heads and if they were real or made out of animal skin. I find it quite fascinating, though I'm also very sad for those actual real people that had to go through this. But I want to know what you think about this in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out my description box for your Peculiar Occurrence gear. As well, hit that like button, share this out to all your peculiar friends, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button along with that bell so that you know when I upload. And until next time, keep your eyes peeled for all things peculiar. Do 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 do.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.